these aren't the only 5 by any means, right? Happy 5 Fact Friday. 5 Fact Friday. I'm Charlie Lambden, and it is 5 Fact Friday. Morning, everybody. Why does that never get old for me? Why does it always put a smile on my face? I don't know. But it's become a compulsion. I can't do these live streams without preferably a cup of tea, sometimes late at night, something a bit stronger if I'm chatting with Stiggy. It is Friday, the 8th of August, 2025. Few things worse than hearing myself in the background. It's 5 Fact Friday, which is when I present the 5 most significant new pieces of information that have come out in the last 7 days insofar as the housing market is concerned. You may not agree, and I'm always willing to hear people who think, no, something else new happened that's more important. A lot of the time, especially with new followers, say, I think something else is more important. It wasn't always something that happened in the last 7 days. So that's the qualifying criteria. It must be something that either was new in the last 7 days or we only became aware of in the last 7 days. Now, I will quickly run through the headlines of the 5 facts in a moment. But first of all, I'm also in this show going to be going through some information on house prices from Christopher Watkins' property stats show he does every week, which I've quickly reviewed, and that we're going to cover up house prices because I'm going to show you that they are actually falling, no matter what anyone else says. Prices per square foot, an interesting analysis between newly listed stuff, sold subject to contract stuff, and actually sold stuff. And then we're going to do another quick look at what a whole basket of estate agents' actual performance results are in one area, because I want everyone, wherever you are and whatever area you are, to understand your realistic prospects of actually being able to move or not move. All right. But back to the 5 facts. So this is fact number 1. I'm going to just leave it up on there while I talk through the other ones, right? So fact number 1 was that the Institute of Directors, which is one of Britain's oldest industry organizations where business leaders get together and decide on stuff, and they do a survey, is at a record low. So directors' economic confidence from the Institute of Directors is at a record low. It's even lower than at the worst point of the pandemic, when no one knew what was going to happen to businesses. That's fact number 1. Fact number 2, Nationwide and Halifax both show that their July house price index figure has ticked up, has increased slightly. And this is, again, what I want to push back on and discuss that in a little bit of detail. Fact number 3 was the video that I did on Monday night, I think it was. I went into detail about the Times reporting thousands of Help to Buy buyers have lost money on their homes and are being forced back into renting. And in the last year, 45% of people who sold Help to Buy properties did so at a lower value than they paid for them. So they have lost a lot of money on those purchases. And then the fact number 4, further tax hikes are now going to be inevitable, probably, for individuals as well as businesses, because of the £50 billion deficit in Rachel Reeves's fiscal. Choosing my words carefully here. Her fiscal hole. Oh, I wish Stiggy was here. He'd say something appropriate at this point. Rachel Reeves' £50 billion fiscal hole is going to cause inevitable. It's nothing funny about it. It's disastrous. It's really serious. I just have the mind of a 12-year-old. Sorry. And the Bank of England voted to cut the interest rate, the Bank of England base rate, from to 4% from 4.25%, as was widely expected by most people. And I'm going to talk about why that's of actually no consequence whatsoever, and what is of consequence. And there's one more thing that I haven't got the details of to hand, but I did see I'll come on to it at the end, but it's basically that the homelessness minister of the Labour government has, in the last 24 hours, resigned her position because it emerged that she had evicted tenants from her buy-to-let properties and then gone on to raise the rents, having evicted tenants. Some people saying she evicted them because she was trying to sell, then she couldn't sell, so she decided to rent them out again. The relevance being that homelessness, of which she is the minister, according to official government figures, and in fact there were some new ones out in the last 7 days that haven't made Five Fact Friday, show that the number one official cause of new homelessness is, drumroll, can you guess? Landlords evicting people to sell or put up the rent. I do have the data and the links for that, and I'll come on to that later. So, but that's another fact. So there's the 5 facts. Then I'm going to go through those 3 slides from Christopher Watkins' stat show. Then I'm just going to show you the proof of that homelessness stuff at the end. If you are watching this after it's live, and so you're now watching a recorded version, you can sort of fast forward probably half an hour or so to get to the point where I go through that house price data. But let's just get into the 5 facts. Now, hello, everybody. Who we got? Lots of you. Why aren't you all at work at this time on a Friday? Oh, it's lunchtime, I suppose. Yacek, Baldrick's Turnip, hi there. Carlos, Ramble and Root, Andrew Taylor, Modi, Grad Physicos, that's a new one. Crawley's Finest. Who's that? That's someone from my past. Victoria Hamilton, hi there. Right, let's get into it. So this is the story, fact number 1. And you might say, but Charlie, what's this got to do with housing? There are 2 things to note about the IOD's Economic Confidence Index, right? Let's just have a quick look at the graph there so you can see the context of it, right? So this is the question that all of the members of the Institute of Directors, so they must be officially registered at Companies House as a company director. How optimistic are you about the wider UK economy over the next 12 months? That's down there in the corner there. And it's a 5-point scale from very optimistic to very pessimistic, and the net positive percentage reading. The latest reading is from this month, July 2025. Sorry, last month. And there you are. So after the first lockdown, it got down to minus, I think, 69% from memory from the commentary. And we're now down at minus 72%. The lowest confidence indicator from people running businesses in the UK of all time. Now, this was major, I think, major economic news, and it didn't get a dicky bird in the news, in the media, nothing. So the only thing I could find, it was on City AM. Business confidence hits record low as Reeve slammed over taxes, right? And it goes into, yeah, we are fresh data by the IOD, 20,000 members. And I asked Faisal Islam on X and said, hey, Faisal, what, nothing, like there's nothing on the BBC. He is the economics editor of the BBC, and he didn't think this was worth talking about. Although the day before they put this out, there was an article on the BBC about the IOD in Guernsey and something that they had said. All of the main papers, nothing. It was 100% totally and completely unreported. Make of that what you will, everybody, because that once upon a time would have hit headlines would have been the front page of the papers at some point. So make of that what you will. Makes me cross when people don't share this stuff. Okay, I didn't answer the question, why is this important in the housing market? And for a lot of first-time buyers, and my audience is predominantly first-time buyers, they're like, I don't understand. How does this affect anything? Businesses are the number one component of GDP, and businesses provide employment. So they are relevant to the jobs market. They're relevant to growth. They're relevant to pension fund performance because of company dividends paying out. It's arguably one of the most powerful leading indicators of what's going to happen in the economy. And what happens in the economy directly impacts the housing market. Always, right? Because GDP per head, employment, unemployment, all of these things directly impact the housing market more than interest rates do. Okay, so the number one thing that correlates most strongly with house price changes is real wage growth. In other words, the increase in people's salaries each year corrected for inflation. So at the moment, let's say it's 5% is the gross increase in salaries each year at the moment, but inflation is at 4%. So the net increase, net of inflation, or the real increase in wages is 1%. And we have everyone at the moment forecasting 1% increase in nominal house prices this year. So that's nominal house prices, by the way. And if you apply the 4% inflation, although I've got Kicking Mustang in my ear saying you can't price houses in carrots, it means that house values are actually falling 3% a year, not going up 1% a year. So economic confidence and business leaders saying this is what they're expecting to happen in the economy is a leading indicator for buyer confidence. I don't like using the word confidence, it's such a nebulous thing, but how much people will offer, how comfortable people feel taking on the risk of buying a home. And I want you to remember this recent mind-blowing, but actually not, it's unsurprising to me, statistic, which is that somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of all first-time buyers regret their purchase. I can't remember the source of it. There was a study done, and it depended on age groups, but the younger you are, the more likely you are to regret your your house purchase. I think it was 50% of the youngest cohort, and then 1/3 of people in their 50s buying first time were regretting it. But this is the point that you never ever hear anywhere in the media. A lot of people regret buying a home. Why do they regret buying a home? Sometimes they bought one in a terrible location with nightmare neighbors, and that's a different thing. But usually it's because they underestimated the true financial commitment of buying a home, because it's a lot more than just your mortgage. A lot more than just your mortgage payment. And so most people end up underestimating the maintenance costs, replacing boilers, fixing central heating, fixing holes in the roof, damp problems, rising damp problems, condensation problems, subsidence problems, boundary disputes with their neighbors. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on, and everything on that list costs money that first-time buyers never factor into their budget. So they end up being the mortgage payment is what they knew it was going to be, but there's this massive list of other costs that first-time buyers who are just rose-tinted spectacles, I must get on the property ladder no matter what happens, because everyone's told me, and my parents told me, and my grandparents are rich because they got on the property ladder, so I must do it. I won't actually go and look to see if anything's changed. I will just buy on the property ladder because that's what I'm told to do without question. That's why half of you end up regretting it. And the whole point of my channel here is to say, I want everyone to have a home, because having a home is wicked. It's awesome. It's one of the best things in the world, unless it becomes a millstone around your neck and ruins everything for you, because this dream that you had turns into a living nightmare. And everything on this channel is about how to buy a home without overpaying. Okay. And this fact right here is exactly the kind of thing that first-time buyers would normally just ignore. Oh, no, it's probably fine. Worst levels of business confidence in all time? Sign me up to my 40-year mortgage at 6 times my salary. It's going to be fine. Okay, that's fact number one. Fact number two, let's get on to, let's just a quick recap, okay? Again, a lot of you are new here and won't know what I say about house price indices. And I'm going to keep it really short, but house price indices are generally to be ignored as a buyer or a seller, because they are a national average of the 4 countries, the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. And you can have 2 countries going up and 2 countries going down. In other words, completely different things happening in the 4 different nations. But one house price index is going to tell you what's happening to your house price. The only reason these things exist is PR for the lenders, right? It is, and for the portals, it's PR for them. Nationwide puts this out so that more people are going to get a mortgage from Nationwide. Halifax does the same. They do not publish their calculation. It is not open to scrutiny. And they all say different things. So, for example, 2.4% says annual price growth, right? According to Nationwide here. Average house prices go up. Go and look at what Zupa says or Rightmove says. It's nearer 1%. How can they be different? It's official house. These are not official house prices. There is no such thing as official house. Even the ONS is not official house prices. Only the individually recorded prices on the Land Registry price paid data website are actually official house prices, because there's no such thing as official. Official is just a word that's intended to make you just believe it's official. Believe what we say. It's official. Don't question it. It's official. None of these are official. They're all corporate bollocks. Right? Whether they're going up, whether they're going down, it doesn't matter. They're all corporate bollocks. They exist purely for PR. And you are best, if you're trying to make a decision on whether to buy a house or not, you are best off ignoring it. It's guff, all of it. Because where you're looking to buy, things might be better than these guys say. They might be worse than these guys say. But these guys don't break it down by property type, by region. I mean, there are some regional breakdowns, and there's some interest, there's some information to be gained from this in terms of the housing market health as a whole for the economy. But on an individual level, they are of almost zero use, almost zero practical value, which is proved by the fact that most sellers still wide-eyed believe the valuations that they are given by estate agents, because there's no way of verifying it. There's no way of checking it. And it's all bollocks. So there's no point even going to what they've said. Oh, they've gone up a bit. They went down a bit last month, up a bit this month. So yeah, last month down 0.9%, this one up 0.6%. Halifax says something similar but different. Up 0.4%, 0.6%. And the average house price, look, there we are. Official average house price. Halifax says £298,000. But no, it can't be, because this is also the official house price, right? Nationwide says it's £272,000. It's official. Well, which is it? The answer is it's neither, because there's no such thing as an official average house price. It just doesn't exist. It's all guff and manipulation to make you think you must get on the property ladder no matter what. And you should get on the property ladder, but not at any expense, not at any price, not at any risk. Okay. And nobody in the industry that is selling you these homes or these mortgages is ever going to be honest with you about the true risks. Because if you knew them, you'd run away and you wouldn't pay what they want you to pay. Which brings me on to another point I wanted to touch on this video, which is about how do you know how much to offer? I had another question yesterday. How do I know how much to offer? The agent says this, the agent says that. I'll come on to that later. But basically, you just ignore what they say. You work out your maximum comfortable price, factoring in all considerations in your personal circumstances for that property, and you make it. It's your first and final offer. And if they don't accept it, you walk away. And if you don't follow that advice and you end up overpaying, can't blame me. Right, we're only on fact number 2. Let's get on to fact number 3. One more comment on these national house price indices, right? They're designed to make you think that because house prices went up 2.4% last year, they're still going up now. Not the case. They may well go up that much next year, but that is not the case, that because they are going up now, they will continue to go up, especially when the economy is looking as dark and stormy as the economy is looking. Okay. Right. Next, fact number 3. I wish I had never bought my Help to Buy flat. Are you seeing a theme here? I wish I had never bought my flat. I won't spend too long on this because I did a full in-depth video on this and got into detail on it. I will just show you the one graph on here in case you didn't get it, which is here it is, this one here. The dark bars are the percentage of people, these are people who've sold a Help to Buy property. And the dark bars are people who sold them for more than they paid. I mean, even if it's just like £1 more, they're in the dark bar. Or if it's £1 less than they paid or more, then they are the yellow bar. And what you can see here is that, yeah, for a while, only 5% of people were selling their Help to Buy for less than they paid for it. But in the last couple of years, it's up at 45%. 45% of people who sold a Help to Buy property in the last 2 years sold it for less than they paid for it. That is a really, really important truth that needs to be spread far and wide. And if you're someone who thinks, yeah, but that won't happen to me, will it? My question to you would be, why not? Why does that happen to you? Because that's what you want to believe, because you must get on the property ladder, right? No, not at any price. But please do go and watch the full video on that from Monday night. It's really important that anyone thinking of buying Help to Buy, it's very, very important. I'm not saying don't, but sorry, Help to Buy doesn't exist anymore, but it's all for new builds, right? Anybody buying new builds, these were all new builds. 45% of people who bought a new build with Help to Buy sold them for a loss in the last 2 years. Let that sink in. Right. Fact number 4. Only 4. God, I'm really rambling today, aren't I? Fact number 4. Rachel Reeves faces impossible trilemma and must raise taxes or cut spending to plug the £50 billion black hole. I don't know why they call it a black hole. It's a fiscal hole. It's not a black hole. It's not any color. It's a fiscal hole. I mean, this is just, again, it's just media hyperbole. Although there's no hyperbole about this. This is the OBR, who a few months ago, if you go and watch Sasha Yanchin's video, he spells it out in horrifying detail using the government's own figures, right? The OBR, who was forecasting a £10 billion surplus, and now going, actually, no, it's a 40 billion. It's really bad. It's not funny. The reason it's not funny is because Rachel Reeves, if she is still Chancellor in October, maybe she will be, maybe she won't. If she's not, I suspect she won't last long afterwards. Whoever the Chancellor is in the October statement will have no choice but to increase taxes and or cut spending. And there's a long list of ways people are mooting about how it might happen. Why, do you ask? Why? Why has she got no choice? Why can't she just leave taxes where they are and just borrow more? Yeah. Why can't she just print money? Why can't she just do that? The reason is because the people who've bought gilts, the private institutions and pension funds who have bought government bonds with real money, expect to get real money back, right? A government gilt is a government bond. It's a loan where the government says, right, you lend us £100 million and we will give you X% interest on it for X 5 years or 10 years or whatever they decide to be, at the end of which you get your money back. So you buy the bond, you buy the gilt for 5 years, and you get your X% per year paid out, right, as a yield, and then you get your money back at the end. That's what a gilt is. And all of that involves real money, not printed money. The way that the Bank of England prints money is that it buys these gilts from the government with money it has effectively printed. So when the Bank of England buys gilts from the government, yes, that is printing money effectively. But when pension funds and other people and private investors and hedge funds buy gilts, that is not printed money. That's real fucking money from people's real fucking pensions, from people's real fucking savings, from people's real fucking life work, putting that money into their pension to be saved. And they expect a real fucking money return. And the reason I'm getting animated about this is because of all of the absolute dipsticks out there going, oh, it doesn't really matter. They don't need to raise taxes. They can just print more money. Right? You can't pay investors back with funny money, right? In other words, the Bank of England doesn't give money out to investors. The Bank of England buys gilts from the government. That's, which by the way, it's not doing, it hasn't been doing for 3 years. It's currently undoing that. The first hints of that changing were made this week somewhere on Bloomberg. John Steppick talked about it. The very, very earliest hints that they might stop unprinting the money they're printing. This is a long answer to the question about why she got an impossible trilemma. Why does she have no choice but to raise taxes? Because if she doesn't, and if the hedge funds and the lenders and the people buying the gilts and the people buying the bonds, the people who expect their real fucking money back, start to worry that the government's not going to be able to pay it back, and so the value of those bonds decreases because they're now seen as more risky. If the value of the bonds decreases because they're seen as riskier, the yield, the effective interest rate on those bonds goes up. And that is an interest rate payment the government has to pay on all of our behalf. Okay, so the cost of borrowing for the government goes up and that hits us all in the pocket. It's a vicious cycle. It's why we're in this mess in the first place, and it will continue to get worse. She's going to raise taxes. It's going to make it worse. It's going to make it worse because we will all get hit by this one way or another. Council taxes will probably go up as well when they're allowed to go up, whilst they continue to actually cut public services. And cutting public services will mean losing public sector jobs. And people paying more tax will have less disposable income, which will affect the economy even more. And so on it goes into a death loop, a death spiral for the economy. Okay. And again, Charlie, how does this affect the housing market? Well, if you are a switched on buyer and you're formulating your risk assessment about whether or not it's safe to buy the home you want to buy, as in, are you going to lose your money or not? Are you going to be able to move later on? Are you going to be negative equity? Are you going to lose your job? You're looking at this and going, this makes the housing market environment look riskier in the future, next year, 2 years. So if you're buying now, what you don't want to do is get blindsided 2, 3, 4, 5 years time, like all those Help to Buy sellers have been, right? So there's no dispute that this happens, right? That people lose money. They buy homes and they lose money. That's in itself not necessarily a reason not to buy a home, because you're losing money when you pay rent as well. So I'm not, as long as you understand the risks and quantify them, then that will lead you to do what I've always said, which is make your offer that is your maximum comfortable offer for a property, for that particular property in your particular circumstances, and how much you see your future affected by the economy. All right. I hope that helps, because this is arguably, in fact, the number one biggest impact on the housing market looking ahead. Is it going to change it right now today? I think it is going to change it right now today, because this news is going to make a lot of the kind of buyers who understand what this means for the future, those buyers are going to be getting more nervous. And I heard an agent yesterday, I was private messaging with an agent yesterday who said, the market's gone quiet. And some people think, oh, well, it's August, that's why it's gone quiet. That can have an impact, but there's someone else in the neighboring market to that who said, no, we're as busy as we ever are because they're pricing houses correctly. So this news, I don't think, stops people who want to own a home owning a home. What it does is it makes them more cautious and makes them offer less. And it also will put additional downward pressure on house prices. Okay, that was a long ramble. I have now, I think, no, we got one more. That was only fact number 4. What am I getting? Half an hour, and I've only got fact number 4. Fact number 5 is a nice, quick, and easy fact. And it is this. The Bank of England yesterday has cut its interest rates to 4%. Now, interestingly, of the 9 members of the Monetary Policy Committee who voted on that, 5 of them voted to cut and 4 of them voted not to. 4 of them voted to hold. And as I said here, that was a narrow vote. 1 vote swung it. If that vote had gone the other way, rates would have been held. Why are they split? Why are they divided on this? Well, because the Bank of England's primary responsibility is to keep inflation down. So as inflation has been rising, and their own forecast is that inflation is going to rise a little bit further, why would they be reducing the interest rate if inflation is going up? And the only answer to that is because they know how badly the economy is tanking and struggling and failing. That is why. Okay, it's the only reason they ever cut rates is to stimulate the economy, stimulate the jobs market. Okay, and I went on to say, let's see what happens to swap rates on which mortgage rates are based as the bond market absorbs the reason for this cut, which is the economy is tanking. I don't expect this to make much difference to fixed mortgage rate offers. And I also looked yesterday at the 5-year gilt yields, the one-day chart. And when they heard the news that the Bank of England was cutting rates, the gilt yield jumped. It wasn't a very big spike, but it went the opposite. So it was 3.9%. Now it's 4.01%. So it's just popped up a little bit, and it ended the day higher than it started. So and these gilt rates, these money market rates, and swap rates are the actual prices that mortgage lenders borrow money for to lend out. So that is what has a closer effect on actual mortgage rates than the Bank of England rate does. And if you're watching this thinking, hang on, Charlie, doesn't the Bank of England set mortgage rates? The answer is no, it doesn't. It sets the Bank of England base rate. Okay, so it was fully expected. It's actually the reason for the cut, which is worries about the economy, is making bond market buyers more nervous, which is why the yield has gone up. Yields go up when the bond price goes down. Okay, so UK government gilt values dropped yesterday after they cut the base rate. Counterintuitive, not when you understand why they did it. Right, half an hour, 32 minutes. There we are. Okay, so do we have any questions, comments? Let me have a quick look at the what's been going on in the comments. Victoria Hamilton getting very entertainingly animated. Hi, Victoria. Fernando Pastana, hi there. Interesting question. Is it worth just saving now and risking your landlord kicking you out? Wage growth, says the English voice narrations. I've been earning the same day rate as an umbrella contractor as I was 5 years ago. Rents in that time, not quite the same as 2020 though, lol. Exactly. This is a classic example of where the cost of living crisis has impoverished people, right? So this fella here, the English voice, is earning the same now as he was 5 years ago. Inflation in that time is up, 25, 30, 35% official inflation. So that means your real earnings have gone down and your rent has gone up. Yeah, pretty typical of what's happened to a lot of people. A lot of the wage growth figure, I think, is coming out of the government, so public sector jobs where they've been putting up, where they've been having to avert strikes for giving public sector pay rises. In the private sector, there are very few areas that are seeing good pay rises. Baldrick Turnip, that's a good question on offers I'll come back to later. Dan, I'm not sure I understand your question about the BOE rate. Could you reword that question? Right. Okay. Next up, I wanted to get into. So my friend Christopher Watkin, and he is a friend. He does this video every week on a Thursday night. It comes out, and he does this in-depth dive on. I'm just going to play you a clip of it, right, just so you understand what's going on here. It's a really, really detailed, in-depth dive into national average figures. But of course, because they're national averages, they're of absolutely no use to individuals, movers or agents at any level. I've said that to Chris, but they are quite indicative of the economy overall. So this is, yeah.
Before that, 36. So again, there is a slight dropping of listings, but as you can see from the graph here, that does tend to happen. I don't know if anyone's told us, but it is the summer holidays. Year to date, in terms of the number of listings, 1.1 million properties have come onto the market, which is 12% higher than the 9-year average, 4.1% ahead of last year, and 6.9% ahead of the more, if there is such a thing, normal years of 17, 18, and 19.
Right, now, I'm pausing it here for a reason. That graph on the left-hand side of the screen that he's just tried to scroll past, right? This one in the top left-hand corner of his screen, he whips past it and doesn't discuss it. And I think, and this is because Chris has, I think, unconscious bias against any news that shows house prices going down, because his audience is predominantly estate agents, and they don't like hearing that, as I've learned, right? And saying to an estate agent house prices are going down makes them go boo, hiss, and throw their pint in your face. And Chris, if you're watching this, why did you skip past this? Because I think it's interesting. Remember that Halifax and Nationwide are going, oh, house prices are ticking up and they're going up and they go up 2.5% a year. Well, I find this particular graph, which you skipped past and didn't cover at all at any point in the video that I could see, very interesting. So I screenshotted it and got a bigger version of it. And here it is. Right. I want to make this as big as we can to make sure everyone can actually read it. It's a bit... There we go. So this particular graph, and I know that I'm cherry picking one thing to back up my plan, but again, this is just to try and stop people overpaying for their homes. This is to try and stop those 50% of people who end up regretting their purchase from regretting it, right? The narrative is house prices are still going up. House prices are still going up. I don't think so. So on this graph, the 2022 bar, so this is the average listing price, so the average asking price of newly listed properties for week 30. So this is comparing this week from this year with the same week of last year and previously, right? And in 2022, the average listing price for this week, week 30 in 2022, was £432,000. Okay? And since then, it's come down. 2023, it dropped from 432,000 to 416,000, and then it crept up a tiny bit in 2024, and this year it's dropped down to 411,000. So that's nominal prices, not taking into account inflation. In order for house values to have kept up with inflation, what would that £432,000 price be from 2022 if it was today? For house value to have kept up with inflation, the newly listed asking price of houses this week would have needed to be £491,000 to have kept up with 2022 price for that week, right? Because £432,000 in 2022 is £491,000 in 2025. And that is according to the Bank of England's inflation calculator. There we are. 432 grand in 2022 is 491,000 this year. Okay. So we are comparing that 491,000 with the 411,000 to show you that actual house values are down by 81, using this particular measure, are down by £80,000. This is asking prices. Obviously, 400 grand is way higher than the average prices of 270 grand or whatever the ONS says and everything else. These are asking prices. I get it. But there is a correlation, a long-term correlation between asking prices and actual prices. They just tend to sort of just roughly track each other like that. But there's always a big gap, right? Then remember what I said earlier, which is that all of this national average data includes Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and England. And England and Wales have been doing worse than Northern Ireland and Scotland. So in fact, the truth in England and Wales is worse than an £80,000 real terms price drop since 2022, when I called the top of the market in February 2022. Okay. It's very nice to be able to look back and go, I called it at the top when everyone thought it was still going up and going to the moon. I was like, I think that's the top right now. So this proves nothing, okay? And different house prices, different house types, different areas are all doing different things. But this is a national average listing price for this week compared with the same week last year before that, right? And yes, I know this is nominal and I'm including inflation, but that is a £21,000 drop in nominal asking prices for week 30 compared to 4 years ago, and an £80,000 drop if you factor in inflation. Right. Any comments on that? Yeah, Isle of Thorn says nominal prices slowly deflating, real prices crashing. I agree. I'm just tagging a few questions I will come to in the end here. Jill Hayes says, to be fair to Chris, who's the host of that video I just showed you in this graph, he does often express frustration at agents overpricing and overvaluing. Yes, he does. But overall, he does tend to sit in the everything is fine camp. Correct, Jill, which is why I try to say to him, what do you expect agents are going to do when you say to them, don't overvalue, but everything's fine, prices are still going up, but don't overvalue? Like, he's actually stoking the problem. It's like he's doing a push me, pull you with them on that. Right, next graph from him, totally separate point. And this isn't nothing to do with prices going up or prices going down. This is to do with making sure that everyone understands I want to just get this really as fast, as large as I can for you. There we go. This is pounds per square foot in the UK on residential sales listings. The red line is comparing the asking price. The orange line is comparing the price at which the sale was agreed, provisionally agreed, so under offer, sale agreed. And the blue price, the blue line, is the exchanged price. And what I want you all to see and notice from this is that look at the difference in the square footages consistently between asking prices, agreed prices, and actual sold prices. And the interesting thing there is that that's a 4 or 5% difference between the sale agreed price and the sold price. So right now, what that tells you is that I don't know whether or not this is taking into account fall throughs or not, but it's saying that there is roughly a 4% renegotiation happening, for reasons we don't know, between sale agreed and exchange at the moment. That's interesting. That is interesting. Neither here nor there on prices overall, but interesting in terms of the market dynamic. Because if you look, actually, that blue and orange line has kind of overlapped itself a bit, but now it's diverging again, and that's interesting. And the last time it diverged was last year. Yeah, there we are. That's interesting. And finally. So this is very much for sellers. This is for sellers, right? This is seller information. It's really important. So this is a screenshot from Chris's video. This is a public YouTube video. Anyone can go find them. And he's picked a particular place. And I'm not going to mention what the place is because I'm not trying to name and shame any particular offices anywhere. I'm showing you this so that sellers understand just how monumentally shit the performance of most estate agents is. All right. in terms of your chances of actually selling, and also, more importantly, to show you the range of probabilities of selling with different agents. Now, I'll cut to the chase on this and tell you straight away that the number one problem here is that the lowest success rate, so this is the percentage of properties that they actually exchange on, is 27%. And it's, no guesses, no prizes for guessing, it's Foxtons. Foxtons, and this is data over 2 years, right? This is 2 years worth of data. In this particular place, which is a well-known suburb of South London, Foxtons only exchanged contracts, in other words, only successfully completed a sale on 27.5% of the 481 properties that it listed in that office in that time. By comparison, the very best level of performance in this particular area is 62%, or just under 63%, for a company called Hubbard Torlott, right? They exchanged contracts on 63% of the 386 properties that they listed in the same period, right? So they sold subject to contract was 70%, and then 8% of those fell through. That's very, very good quality performance. All right. The range goes from 27% for Foxtons and 27% for Man. Man & Co is a Countrywide brand currently owned by Connells, so no surprises there. So Foxtons and Connells at the very, very bottom in terms of performance. 27% all the way up to 63% is the best, right? That's the range. This is a snapshot that we're able to see because it's on the YouTube video. But generally speaking, for reasons that are unsurprising, this information is not made publicly available. But every single place in London, I did a tweet on this about Foxtons in Fulham. It was even worse. In Fulham, they were 23%, only 23% sold. They failed to sell 77% of the property they listed in their Fulham office. And Dexter's was a close second in that. So look at that. The overall average at the bottom in the middle there is that they couldn't even, all of the estate agents in that borough over 2 years of all the properties that they listed only managed to actually exchange contracts on 41% of what they listed. They agreed a sale on 49%, so they didn't even manage to agree a sale on half. And they only exchanged on 41% of what they sold. That is a collectively pathetic effort. Why? It's not in their interests, because they're all fighting each other on overvaluing. And I'm going to give you a comparison, right? As some of you who've been watching this will know, I'm working with an estate agent in Kingston, and we've just done the 6 months results. And in that 6 months, I really would like to put this up on screen. Their sold subject to contract percentage, in other words, stuff they've got under offer, is 26 out of 27 instructions. So well over 95%. This doesn't cover how long these things are on the market, but the average time to sale agreed is 21 days. Average number of viewings, 17 viewings. And that's in 21 days, right? And average number of offers is 4 on every single property. And by the way, this agent, before I was working with them, had similarly crap stats to all these guys. What changed? I went in and said to them, stop doing valuations. Just describe the process that gets people through the door quickly, creates a market for the property, and gets multiple offers competing with each other, so that the seller can be confident they've actually found the true market value of their home and can decide whether or not to accept it. So this is what I call the best agent process. It's talk process, not prices. And it works. It works unbelievably well. But I can't seem to persuade agents. There are a couple of agents starting to get in touch with me now and ask about it, because this is the basis on which I'm hoping to build the Best Agent website. Is going to be encouraging more agents to adopt the Best Agent approach so that they sell their customers' properties faster, so that the sellers are happier, the buyers are happier, and guess what? The agents also get higher fees. Because what we've discovered in this agency is that when sellers can see the cold, hard proof of this extraordinary results rate of nearly 100% sold within 3 weeks, and then a time to actual exchange time has dropped from 115 days to 70 days, guess what? They're happy to pay a proper fee. No other agent can match it. So the other agents are going, they're arguing over 1%, 0.9%, 0.75%. This agent's now getting 1.75 to 2%. And the sellers aren't arguing because they're realizing, well, no one else can do that. Yeah, that's worth 2%. You get my property sold at the best price the market will pay in 3 weeks. Yeah, I'll pay you 2% because that allows me the certainty to move on with my life. So in other words, agents do better out of it as well. But it's like beating my head against a brick wall. What was the last thing I wanted to show you? That's what I was going to show you the that homelessness information, because it's absolutely shocking. Shocking. Where are we? Where are we? Why is it not there? It is there. I've got it. I found it. I found it. Right. One moment, guys. Sorry. So new figures out last week confirm that landlords selling up continues to be the #1 cause of new homelessness. Right? The most common recorded reason households were owed a prevention duty, a homelessness prevention duty, due to the end of a tenancy was the landlord wishing to sell or relet the property. 8,950 households in 3 months. This is Q1 2025 data, right? So that's very nearly 3,000 households a month. And the actual official government page is here, right? So I'll put the link for those of you watching this right now. I'll put the link in the live chat so that anyone who wants to check can see it. There it is in the live chat. All right. Government's own data. This is the irony. The government's own data proves that landlords selling up and evicting tenants to relet is the #1 cause of the homelessness that we taxpayers, through our council tax, are paying for. Okay, it is at record levels, and yet the homelessness minister was a landlord who had done just that. Absolutely disgusting. Right, guys, a couple of questions I've pinned. Let me take these questions on board because I really want to do this. Baldrick's Turnip says, question, Charlie, what is better, guide price or offers from, or you mean offers over, when setting your pitch price? I actually don't think it's worth putting anything other than just the launch price, right? Just the launch price, okay? Putting words on actually only serves to create confusion. It's used by agents sometimes, and it's used to make sellers happy, but just put it on at a launch price. You don't need to have guide or offers over, or just for sale. That's the price. That's the launch price. That's all you need to do. Some agents do use offers over, and good agents use it when they know that the price they're launching it at is well below what they're going to get offers for. And they're setting expectations right there, offers over this price, and they will get them. Bad agents, on the other hand, who you can see because they've got an offers over property on their website that's been there for months, are the ones who have let the seller tell them, or they've wrongly advised the seller, Yes, you just name your price, put offers over, and sit back and wait for people to come and pay over market value. And guess what? It doesn't work, doesn't happen. So there are valid uses of the offers over thing, and there are stupid uses of the offers over thing. Guide price, again, people see it a different way. I don't think it's necessarily helpful. Lee Macaulay asks, are management charges for services on new build estates a rip-off? Generally speaking, yes, but there are places that aren't, and it's not fair to tar them with the same brush as all the bad ones. Any more questions? One more question, then we'll go, because I haven't had my lunch yet. Tanya Warwick, you've said question, but you haven't typed it. Have you got a question? You're welcome, Baldrick's Turnip. Dan says, question, if the properties are not selling in good times, how are the baby boomers going to get their monies if the economy takes a downturn? Very good question. And it's the reason why I have been saying for 3 years, since 2022, that if you want to downsize or sell your large house for whatever reason, don't delay. Those who have delayed, especially the ones who've delayed thinking, oh, we'll take it off the market and wait for the market to come back and put it back on. Anyone who did that in the last couple of years has just lost money, has just lost even more money. But those are the people who are clinging to the false belief that house prices always go up. Can't say it enough, guys. And to those of you on X who are going, but Charlie, how can you say house prices aren't going up and they're going down? When I look at this headline, look at this headline, look at this headline. These headlines say house prices are going up. Halifax is my answer to anyone saying that is, do you automatically believe all the headlines that you read? If so, my condolences and very best wishes because you're going to need them. Yeah, Dan says, I watch Chris Watkin for the data and make up my own mind. We also need to remember how it makes money, so don't expect him to say otherwise. That's true. But again, you can look at national average data all you like. It doesn't tell you anything about what's happening where you need to move. That's the point. Guys, I'm going to wrap it up. Please, by the way, as of today, I have started putting what I'm calling my thought of the week. And it's only going into my newsletter, right? My weekly 5 Fact Friday newsletter. Apologies today. The newsletter came out and all the information in it is correct, but some of the links got corrupted. So apologies for that. If you've been watching this video and want to see the links to all of the facts that I presented today, in the description below is a link to a blog post on my website that has all the correct links. But only in the newsletter is my thought of the week on the housing market, because I really would love, I've got across all the platforms, I've got something like 70, 80,000 of you subscribed. I've only got 1,000 of you getting my newsletter. And for those of you who haven't got time to watch all my videos, that kind of stuff, it's just a really good catch up for the week. Make sure you don't miss anything that you might have wanted to see. It provides links to the sources of the 5 facts, and now exclusively in the newsletter only is going to contain my thought for the week. So if you haven't subscribed to my newsletter, I would be very grateful if you did. There it is, mhwc.co.uk/newsletter. Comes out every Friday. Other than that, guys,